Good morning everyone, it's Jake here at Walkie Farm at the home block in Wamagama. About to move these cows and I wanted to talk to you about welfare. Come on! So I'm bringing them out of this paddock that I had them in for 3 days while I was doing yard work at different properties. Close this one so that I don't end up on the street. Come on! Benevolent neglect. Oh, there we go. I'm back on the screen. Benevolent neglect. I was chatting to a buddy of mine who I chat to every day, and he hears all my ramblings about what we do and what we think and what we're trying to achieve and how we're trying to achieve it. You can see some of my buggy tracks up and down there. Put out some more of my compost extract 2 days ago. Got a new spray rig set up, which is narrower. It's putting out more litres per hectare, but the spray's narrower, heavier droplets that aren't going as fast. So my lines are pretty tight, trying to cover that whole paddock. Put about 1,000 litres out on 2.5 hectare. This paddock is. Come on! But benevolent neglect. The subheading of that thought phrase would be, I love you, so you better make it. Not, I love you, so I'm going to do everything within my power to make it, but I love you, so you better make it. And to zoom out, this really comes down to two different phrases in my mind. This is how I think about it: micro welfare and macro welfare. So micro welfare is, triage and treatment. So an animal's wormy, worm it. An animal's got mastitis, antibiotics. An animal's body condition slipping, protein supplement. An animal has issues calving, pull the calf. An animal has pink eye, treat it. You got the drill. An animal's got fleas, backline it. These sorts of things. And I'm certainly not saying that treating a suffering animal is inherently bad, but that's micro welfare. And micro, not to say that it's, there's always a couple on a corner like this, isn't there, that run back the line. That's all right, I'll just leave this gate open. It's always bloody Mickey too, because she's the subordinate animal in this mob. She's always at the back, so it makes sense, but they'll come through later. I'll follow them down there. But micro welfare is not to discredit that welfare or to take anything away from it. There's an important place for it, and it's still welfare, which is the the good fortunes of a group. Health and happiness and good fortunes of a group is what welfare means. Macro welfare might incur a little bit more pressure, a little bit more suffering on the said animal group in the short term, and hopefully giving the farmer information to fuel his hypothesis, so that on a longer time horizon, time preference, being able to pull levers and make decisions that negates the need for those micro welfare interventions. So an example that I think paints a really nice picture about this is mulesing sheep or crutching sheep. So obviously wool sheep grow a lot of wool. They've been bred to have a lot of creases in their skin, inside those creases, especially around their anus. There's a lot of humidity, a lot of sort of urine and feces gather up, and maggots get laid in there, and they just start eating the sheep alive. I certainly would never advocate for letting that happen. An interesting side note is wool sheep are not natural. You go back long enough and sheep were all hair sheep. And the reason, like I was thinking, why do animals have a propensity to grow wool and give themselves inevitable fly strike. And I thought maybe it's because we brought these animals to Australia, but sheep hail from climates very similar to a lot of continental Australia. They're allowed into this small little holding paddock with this dam today. They're only going to be in this paddock for one day, so they're going to have access to the dam for one day, and I'm hoping they knock down a heap of these little eucalypts growing up on my bank, because they're a pain in my butt. I'm going to have to come down and chop a heap of them down. Their taproot tool, as those trees mature, will eventually start to destroy the integrity of the dam wall there. But sheep don't have that natural inclination to... There you go. The bull Kaya went back and got them all through the gate. Yeah, the sheep don't have that natural inclination to sort of put that pressure on themselves. Humans have selectively bred sheep to produce wool as a product for us to use. All sheep are hair sheep if you go back far enough over time. So I just thought that was interesting. But micro welfare would be treating those animals in a way so that they don't get fly strike, and whether that's mulesing, which is cutting the skin away from the anus, or whether it's crutching, which is keeping the wool short around the anus so that there's not that wool there to build up the humidity and manure and that sort of thing. Hey, big boy. Macro welfare would be the development of the SRS merino. SRS stands for soft rolling skin, and essentially what they've done is observed that some merino were less predisposed to fly strike than others, formed a hypothesis and checked it, and it was due to different skin rolling patterns. They've obviously bred these wool sheep to have rolls in their skin because the rolls increase the surface area of the animal, so more skin per animal, which means more wool per animal. And the SRS crew, don't know who they are, I've just spoken to farmers and read a bit about it, identified that certain soft rolling skin characteristics lent these animals to not get fly strike. So they've just developed a genetic base of fine wool merino that don't get fly strike. So that to me would be macro welfare. So in the short term, I'm sure a few animals probably suffered a little bit more as the people taking this breeding project underway were having to put pressure onto the animals to observe who could handle it and who couldn't, and who had those genetic traits that could avoid that poor outcome, that poor health outcome being the fly strike. And that probably went over a number of probably thousands of sheep for a few years. But now you've ended up, and I'm sure these farmers didn't just let them die in the paddock. They would have just been observing pressure. Look at these rabbit holes. Incredible. And then getting involved and treating as needed. That's our boundary just there. And that's our boundary. This is the northeast corner of our farm. And this dam actually feeds our header tank that we water our garden with. But the end product of a SRS merino that doesn't necessarily need mulesing or crutching is a sensational win for the breed and all the animals involved. No longer do these animals have to rely on sophisticated management to just not get, violently ill and die. There we go, Kaya. Push it down, mate. Yes. Oh, just perfect. Now, this sort of behaviour, it's always the bulls, isn't it? Look at them. And that little bull there too. Absolutely sensational. Now, there's dozens of examples of this micro and macro welfare, but I think I've painted a big enough picture, and that's one of the things that we're really trying to achieve here on the farm. And we are, and I think we've done a pretty good job of it. Like, we've got very little issues with anything across the board. One thing that I will say is we wanted to shortcut a lot of that short-term suffering, because it's difficult if you care about your animals, which most farmers, I'd say nearly all farmers do. It's difficult to watch them go through that. It's hard to always know when to pull the levers to intervene. It's not always straightforward who's suffering why or because of what, etc., etc. Here's that heifer that's about to pop. Look at that bag. She's milked right up. I saw a little bit of discharge on her tail yesterday. So how did we shortcut a lot of that initial trial and error, or how did we attempt to? Well, the way we attempted to was finding fit for purpose genetics, which early on I identified as hardy indigenous African breeds. Hey Talani. I looked at these animals. I found out about Nguni first, did some research, talked to some breeders, understood that they were raised by tribal peoples who didn't have access to intervention, therapeutics, veterinary care necessarily, didn't breed to breeding values and weaning weights. The whole idea was stay alive and we'll keep you, breed, stay alive and you'll be around. And if you don't breed or you don't stay alive, you're gone. And so we've taken these Nguni beef genetics, these Damara lamb genetics, and now messing around with sheep genetics. Chicken genetics, my Egyptian Fayumi chickens, trying to come up with a similar animal that's predator proof and can eat less, concentrate feed, etc., and still be a productive animal on the farm. And to an extent, we've also gone about our dog breeding enterprise. We breed dogs for the pet market. We've also gone about that. There was more money for us if we were solely after cash to get into breeding something like a French bulldog or a pug. These animals have a lot of inherent issues that are the fault of humans. Like French bulldogs, they got great little personalities, and a lot of people really love the look of them because they're so unique and peculiar. I think one of the things that makes them look so adorable is they actually have the similar physical characteristics of an infant child. If you think about an infant child, their head is the same size as their torso. And just subconsciously, we identify that when something's got a head that's the size of its torso, it's a baby. And babies are cute, and we gush and oogar and all that over babies. And that's what a French bulldog is. Their heads are the size of their bodies. But I know people who have bred French bulldogs in the past, and the breeding program starts with either the sire being put in a harness and hung off a door frame and then you hold the female under them so they can mount them properly, or it's an artificial insemination because their legs are so stumpy and their bodies are so rotund and they have issues naturally penetrating and breeding the female. And then you've generally got a C-section because the little puppies' heads are so big that when the bitch goes into labour to give birth, she has a lot of trouble passing those pups. So for welfare, you do a C-section, and then it's bottle feeding or manually feeding those pups. You're waking up every 2 hours, putting them on a nipple, weighing them because they've got such... Oh, Kai's got the runs there. They've got such stumpy bodies and short stumpy legs that they have a hard time navigating themselves up to the teat. The puppies are blind and they've just got to smell the milk and scurry around. Well, they have issues actually getting on the teat. So you've got all these issues to breed this beautiful dog that people are going to spend a small fortune on, and then, by proxy inherit this large veterinary bill because the dogs, a lot of them have skin allergies, they sneeze and their eyes bulge out of their head, they need to be popped back in, they have issues breathing, so they need soft palate reductions, issue. Or you could get a dog like a standard Schnauzer, which has really only been protected by its breed standard. A lot of these pedigree breeds write breed standards and they get leveraged in the show ring. If a breed standard like a German Shepherd breed standard says sloped hips, they breed the most sloped hips to the point that the dogs can't open up into a full gait and sprint anymore. So the police force that would use a German Shepherd as a sort of a defense or an attack dog in service has to purchase through specific lines, because not all German Shepherds have the inherent athletic capabilities that we would assume to a German Shepherd, because they've been aesthetically bred to the point that they no longer have these inherent abilities. And we've really stuffed up a lot of dogs. But the standard Schnauzers, being a very old German breed, they're just a robust dog. You know, they've got a good life expectancy, no known genetic faults. If you get an 8 or a 10-year-old child to draw a picture of a dog, it's what a standard Schnauzer looks like. Its waist is narrower than its chest. It's got an elongated snout. You know, it's not a boxy frame. It's more of a rectangle frame. It just looks like a dog. Instead of these, you know, Chihuahuas and Pomeranians and Pugs and French Bulldogs and Corgis and all these sort of like stumpy little dogs we've developed that just come with all these issues. I knew someone that had, I think it was Chihuahuas, and they had epileptic seizures, and I looked into it, and it's because they've been bred to have such small round skulls that it doesn't leave enough room for their brain. It puts pressure on their brain and puts them into epileptic fits. Just ridiculous. So, you know, I think if you're looking for macro welfare, which ends up meaning less inputs, less costs on veterinary care, less labour, more time doing fun jobs like this instead of doing, you know, care and triage and veterinary intervention, you start with the right genetics first. And then you cull hard, you watch for the animals that can't handle your system. The ones that can't handle, you don't let them suffer forever. You identify, you intervene, you cull. They're gone. Cull doesn't mean shoot them dead in the paddock. It means get them healthy, get past your withholding period, sell the animals off, and move on and deal with the animals that can do it. Beautiful perennial base in the middle of this valley. You know, there's this little valley here on the farm. So obviously there's a wet area down the middle where these tussocks and things grow. Where they are now, you've got perennial fog grass, a little bit of phalaris coming up, some perennial ryegrass, plenty of subclover in this paddock coming up at the moment. So cows are going to have a good day today, and hopefully they get in there and bash a few more of those eucalypt trees down. Thanks for listening.